Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of moderating also the next panel, which, as I said, is connected to connectivity. Connectivity and tourism growth, opening new markets. I have the pleasure to invite to the podium two very important ladies which will give us their experience and wisdom on this subject. We had the previous panel with three gentlemen. We have this panel with two beautiful ladies. So Mrs. Virginia Messina, the CEO of African Travel and Tourism Association. Please, madam. Mrs. Messina has recently joined ATTA, and I think it is a very opportune moment as tourism is experiencing a renewed interest here in Africa. Our second speaker is, and allow me to pronounce, I hope her name correctly, Mrs. Lila Harangozo, Head Office of the Capital European Affairs, a strategic advisor and expert. So, connectivity was mentioned so many times yesterday, but even today. And of course, the first thing that comes into our mind is airlines, airports, roads. But I believe that eventually connectivity is much, much more than that, especially today. It has a much broader meaning. It means digital connectivity. It means connectivity of paying systems, of visa facilitation, of data networks, even of cultural connections, and of course, we heard by many previous speakers the connectivity between other sectors which are so vital for the promotion and development of tourism. So I would very much like to have your first initial idea about how you see the necessity of establishing this important connectivity among all those factors in order to have a, let's say, satisfying result.
Thank you. Well, very, very big question. Can I also say, I've obviously stolen my friend from TUI's face, so this is my real face. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bearing with us. We know it's the end of the last day, so hopefully we will make this engaging enough. And thank you to His Excellency for hosting us with so many rhythms and flavors of Angola, and of course to our friend Bulut for bringing this incredible gathering together. I'm very, very pleased to be here representing the Africa Travel and Tourism Association. So we bring together about 1,000 members from 32 countries across Africa. Hotels, hospitality, accommodation, aviation, obviously tour operators, travel agencies, DMCs. And what we do is we're a business to business. We drive growth across Africa. We promote all of our untold stories, but we also try to address some of these big challenges that need to unlock this growth. And yes, we know connectivity is essential. I think we've heard it more than enough in this forum. We are an ecosystem. Tourism cannot operate without all of these factors and all of these elements we have been hearing today. And indeed, access is essential. And indeed, network is essential. So if we look at what's happening in the world, and I think we all need to learn from each other. And I like to take the example of Asia Pacific because they are ahead of us in terms of the number of international visitors, yet they're a very fragmented region of islands. And what happened there? it was actually through the success of an airline, AirAsia, that they have really increased their growth and their tourism numbers, and of course a number of elements. So how can we learn from some of those lessons that are out there? To your big question about absolutely everything that connectivity brings together. It's not just the airlines, it's the access, it's the roads. I think in today's day, digitalization and the new technologies are going to play an essential role in making not just a region more connected, but the world more connected. And again, is how do we benefit from what's happening in other regions to bring Africa closer together and to tell the world that we're a big continent and have so much to offer, but yet it's that access not just to the world, but to ourselves that is gonna be critical to drive tourism growth.
Thank you so much. Lila, we heard it also before, that there is greater and better connectivity between individual African states, or even Angola, with Europe than the connection between inter-African states. And this is, I believe, a huge untapped opportunity. We heard it, that domestic, or if you wish, continental tourism should be perhaps more on the focus of tourism entities, of tourism administrations. What is your view on that?
Thank you for the question. And again, thank you everybody who brought this event together. It's amazing. I'm the head of Office of Capital European Affairs, a Brussels-based NGO advisory firm. And we try to help our partners navigate in the complexities of the EU bubble of European decision-making and also beyond. So, reflecting to your question, I would like to also bring it a bit more that perspective, because I think the EU is a very good example of how, yes, we are the EU, we are in one union, but we are separate countries. And for instance, tourism is a member state competence. So everybody has their own tourism strategies, everybody has their own ways of doing things, but at the same time, thanks to the Schengen, we are very unique in the sense that you can go from one country to another without any issues. And also, many European people, they decide not to leave Europe for a while because it's just easy to jump over from one country to another with a 2-hour-long flight. Of course, in Africa, the distances are a bit different in that sense. But I believe that if this would be changed in Africa, anywhere, but now we have this beautiful airport that indeed many people mention that it's empty, so it has a huge potential of opening up and bringing up more and more airlines here, then we would definitely tap another resource of tourism development, which is intra-Africa. And also, and maybe later on we can talk about this, that many African countries don't have a big brand in Europe. Also, when I told my family that I'm coming to Angola, and my friends, they knew where Angola is, they knew it's in Africa, but they did not know a lot about it yet. And this is a big thing that we should also really think about, how to promote and how to open the market, but not only to Europe, not only to any international destination, but also within Africa. And if you have bilateral agreements of facilitating travel between one another, then you can just basically, with a tick, open up the potential for investment, for tourism development, for job developments, and also the skills that you mentioned to interchange the skills and the ways you're doing, because everybody has their own practices which are potentially, if they are intertwined, you can bring up something significantly better from it.
Virginia, a spin-off question on aviation. Do we need, do African countries need to be air hubs, all of them? Or should they try to cooperate in a manner where they are fewer, better equipped and better serviced hubs, which are serving more than one country. What is your idea on that?
That's a very good question. And there's some very good examples, for like what's happening in Ethiopia with Ethiopian Airlines. And Addis has become a real hub for East Africa and it's really driven a lot of growth to that region. And now it's developing connectivity to other markets. I believe Atlanta, for example, is one of their new routes. So there are some really good hub examples in the region. Do we need too many of those? I don't think so. I think what we need is more cooperation. I think we have a lot of national carriers. I think part of the problem we have is protectionism. There is a lot of protecting national carriers and therefore not allowing for more competition. Demand needs to be driven by some of these national carriers. These national carriers need to continue frequencies, also open new routes, and the rest will follow. But it doesn't always mean you have to have 5 airlines flying the same route. It could mean it is about cooperation. It is about code sharing. So like in everything else, it comes down to partnerships, right? The governments have a role to play. The airports have a huge role to play. But it is about speaking to our peers, understanding and driving that demand. I think it's very important to understand that it's not easy to open a new route. It's not just to say we want to fly from Luanda to somewhere else and it's just going to happen. There is a lot of time, there's a lot of research and data that goes into this process. There's obviously marketing that needs to happen for these routes to pick up and obviously the demand to be there to be able to fill in the seats needed, because we also need to bear in mind that airlines have incredibly tight margins. We pay a lot of money for those flights, but what the airlines are actually making is the bare minimum. So it is a very, very tough industry, but it is an industry that we need more in Africa, and that's why those partnerships and collaboration are essential.
Oh, thank you very much for this. I hope that as a member of ATTA, you will push forward with these ideas. Lila, something completely different. The Netflix effect. Films, streaming, influencers, digital storytelling, they are all shaping the name, the brand of a tourism destination. Now, if you were an Angolan and you had $1 million to invest, would you invest in a new, let's say, tourism office in a third country, or would you invest it in trying to show your country through all these modern technological means to a greater audience?
I'm happy that
Tricky question.
I'm happy that you asked this question, actually, because I think there is a big change in the past few years, especially since COVID and digitalization and TikTok, Instagram, all these new pages are coming up. I'm part of the new generation, the younger generation, and I must say that I myself also oftentimes get the information from Instagram Reels, from TikTok videos, Facebook advertisements, and I rarely go on any site of tour operators and such, because it's just so much easier that you have an influencer you are following and you know that they have been traveling a lot and they give you good recommendations also anywhere else in the world. And I think that's part of the future of how we are going to be able to promote more and more the destinations, that we need to invest more into this type of information sharing and this type of thinking, that we, and even like 5-8 years younger people than me, they don't do the way that people used to do. They also want to travel in a different manner. They want to have experiences. They want to have experiences that are connected. They also want to pay attention whether that what they're doing is actually good for the ecosystem and, let's say, sustainable in that sense. People also mentioned it in my previous panels, and it came up with the certifications with Randy and the GSTC, and now Kashyap also mentioned that when it comes to animal welfare, we want to make sure that what we are doing is good for our planet, and it's also good for us at the same time. So it's a complete shift in my opinion and what I'm seeing also in just people in my circle, but also in the EU potentially, what is the future of travel and tourism?
Thank you. Virginia, we mentioned this also before, artificial intelligence. There is no doubt that it is changing the way people are discovering destinations today. But tomorrow, I believe that artificial intelligence assistants will be the ones planning and, let's say, implementing our tourism vacations and visits to countries. So what should African countries, what should Angola do today to ensure that they are visible in tomorrow's digital tourism ecosystem, which is just around the corner, by the way?
Well, first of all, I would agree with the previous panel that we are a people sector, so I don't think AI will replace any of our jobs, but I do think it's going to help us become a lot more efficient. And I think the airlines particularly are already seeing the benefits of some of this. It's helping us process passenger data in a more quick and efficient way. It's even actually helping us address sustainability, which from an airline perspective is a very, very complicated issue. Obviously, we know sustainable aviation fuels are expensive and not available at scale, but AI is helping us predict the weather to, for example, minimize contrails, which are very heavy on CO2. So there's a lot of efficiencies, and AI is going to help us get there faster. It's going to help us make us more secure and more efficient, as I was saying. So it is going to be part of the future. And I think when you say, what does a destination like Angola need to do when you're opening up to the world and the world is your oyster. You have so much to learn from and so much to develop, so much untapped potential, right? I think digital infrastructure is going to be key. I also think there's so much more competition these days. If we go back 3-4 decades ago, you had your traditional established destinations. Today it's impossible to choose where to go, and now we have new and upcoming destinations like Angola. But it will be only the ones that are more innovative, that are benefiting from these new technologies, that are marketing themselves in a targeted way. Every source market is different. You can't sell to Germans like you sell to Mexicans, like you sell to Brazilians. Well, actually, we're pretty similar. I'm Mexican, and I feel like I'm at home here, by the way. But it is about that tailored approach, and it's definitely AI and these digital technologies that are going to help us achieve this in a more efficient way.
Well, AI, it reminds me of one-liner that I read very recently about artificial intelligence. It says that we humans were so clever to invent AI, we were so dumb to need it, and we are so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing. I, at least at my age, am at this stage. I would thank you so much for your interventions and for all the wisdom we shared today with our audience. Please, a warm applause to our two speakers. Thank you.
Thank you.